for the greatest show in fantasy football history, hosted by the incomparable Scott Connor and the one and only Ray GQ. I present to you Destination Chill, where football and fantasy collide.
Let's get it. GEGP. Good evening, good people. Welcome in for another episode of Destination Chill. Y'all know what it is, your boy Ray G. You can find me on X at Ray GQ. Joined as always by my esteemed colleague and co-host Scott Connor. You can find him at Charles Chill FFB. Destination Chill, December 6th, 2023. Week 14 of the NFL season is here. Appreciate everybody being in the building. TP, I see you. We already got a couple of super chats. Ryan Smart, we'll get to you later on down the line. What's up, Jeremiah, Craig, Cole World, TDE, Jimbo, Graphic 13. Got a damn good show lined up for y'all tonight. I'm excited. We were off for a week, celebrated 7 years of marriage with my wife. We had a good time away, but I'm excited to be back, and there's a lot going on right now. NFL, NCAA, all the works right now in football. And I'm just going to say this, and it's not even a shameless plug. I know a lot of y'all right now, season's winding down. Oh, crap, it didn't work out the way I thought. I'm tapping out. I'll come back in July and August. Man, the content that we produce over here at DD, if you're new to the channel, it's evergreen season. Like, now is our time. We are about to crank up and ramp this thing up. And I'm going to just tell y'all right now, one of the best shows, one of the absolute best Dynasty strategy shows that you can spend your time watching, and it isn't even a lot of time, y'all. Scott's got a new show. It's right here. It's this Dynasty Portfolio Weekly. In this episode that he talked about, dropped today on the channel, navigating the wide receiver market. Probably, Scott, I don't even think you realize how good this show was and how much people need to hear this episode and what you talked about, because inside of this show, you talked about it's easy to tell people what to do with Jamar Chase. Ray, should I trade for A.J. Brown, CeeDee Lamb? Yes. It's easy to talk about K.J. Osborne. Does he matter? Hell no. But the range in Dynasty fantasy football that confuses and complicates most fantasy managers the most is that middle tier. It's the Drake Londons, the Brandon Ayuks, the Deontay Johnsons, the Terry McLaurins. That's the range, and that's a wide range. There's only a handful of elite guys, and then you know all the roster cloggers, but that middle tier, learning how to navigate that is just so invaluable. The Trinity tool, I'm going to just say it, I think it's the best tool in fantasy football for evaluating wide receivers now and in the future. Scott, you do a great job with that, so just plug the weekly portfolio series for people who are thinking, well, shit, I don't play in 50 leagues. I don't play in 100 leagues like you do, Scott. Why should I tap into this?
Yeah, well, I appreciate the introduction. It was one of those series that when you came to me and you were like, you know what, let's get a short show on the channel every week. I'm like, what can I talk about every week that we don't cover on Trades in 5? And it was just, let me talk about some portfolio strategies. And if you do it in 10 to 15 minutes, it's usually, at least the way that I talk, both you and I can talk and talk and talk and talk, right? Everyone watching this knows. So to say, hey, you only have 15, 20 minutes to do a show, it's pretty much one topic, and then you can hit that as hard as you can, but you can't really venture off into other positions or other points. So it's a quick hitter, 15, 20 minutes. It's going to center around one topic. And if you listen to it and you go, this really doesn't apply for me, that's fine. I even said on the first show, even if you only play in a couple leagues, I think you can still learn from the way of thinking. And I know you do it, I do it. We consume content that is not fantasy football related. You know, we're both in the legal field. Like, things that make you think can then make you a better Dynasty player, because you can go, wait a second, I heard somebody talk about this thinking strategy or this approach to something. Nothing to do with Dynasty, but then I put the dynamics of Dynasty into that same thought. All of a sudden I have a Dynasty strategy and people go, wow, I've never thought about Dynasty that way. So that's what Portfolio Weekly it's going to be. It's going to be just some high level thing that I'm thinking about from my perspective, but I guarantee anybody watching this, 2 leagues, 5 leagues, 50 leagues, 1,000 leagues. There's a dude on Sleeper in over 1,100 Dynasty leagues. Now, I don't know if he's portfolioing it, but you can take something away and it'll make you a better player. And I guarantee it will make you want to go, hey, maybe I should join another league and go try that. And that's what we're here for, to grow the community. So I appreciate the introduction.
Well, let's get right to it, Scott. I want to maximize and utilize every bit of the 1 hour that we have with the people. So I appreciate everybody here. Comment, chat away. And we'll get to everything towards the end of the show. But this is an important show, Scott, because I do believe that we are entering an era where the foundation in which we play Dynasty fantasy football is changing right before our eyes. And it's not just the valuation of running backs or how people try to go after quarterbacks and superflex startups. It's starting to go and shift to the college game. And we're seeing what's happening with the transfer portal and how players are finding success in new situations. And when they find that success and they boom, and that success is, it's astronomical, right? They're coming from nothing to something. Well, the NFL starts to take notice. And we used to live in this mind frame in Dynasty where we wanted the guy that's been at Alabama for 3 years and got to start as a true freshman with a 17.9 Brian Edwards level breakout age and the dominator rating and all of that. And now you look up in the NFL, it's like, hell, I don't even care if you threw the ball 600 times for half a season. If you're talented, you've got a skill set, or if you're experienced and have the starts, we'll value you. And what you're seeing in the NFL, Scott, is not only are teams and GMs and owners not prioritizing coaches long-term, even if they take a quarterback early in the first round or a wide receiver here, 2 years, if you're not producing, they're gone. They're not even thinking 5, 10, 6 years down the line. So before we dive into who's transferred, what this means for a dynasty gamer or fantasy football in general, just talk about this paradigm shift that we're seeing in the game stemming from college to the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, people are probably wondering, all right, what are they going to talk about with the transfer portal? Because you see that graphic that Jay Rich, shout out to Jay Rich for putting up the awesome graphic with the, what would you call it? Like the 3 iterations of Burrow as he faded in and faded out. I mean, pretty sick graphic. So shout out to Jay Rich for that. But you see that and you go, all right, they're going to talk about the transfer portal. So we're going to sit here and we're going to talk about the 100 QBs that have entered the portal since November 13th. And we're going to talk about where they're going to land. And Ray's going to give his analysis as who fits where and all this kind of stuff. Then we're going to talk some Devy values or some college fantasy values. No, we're not talking about that. We'll hit on some of that, but I think it's important to just kind of think about what does this shift mean from a dynasty perspective. And there's multiple things going on. It's not just shifting from college football. There's 67 Power 5 schools that are going to be in the 4 major conferences next year. So what does this dynamic mean for that? What does it mean for quarterback development? And then how does that transfer into the NFL, which I'll challenge anybody to go into one of your leagues, pull up the war tool in your Destination Devy subscription if you're subscribed. If not, check out destinationdevy.com. Throw in one of your leagues into that war tool. Just look at the quarterback war. Look at it this year. Look at it historically. And then think about how I can maybe exploit. And there is a place you can exploit this. Tune into the roster construction series if you want to find out more onto why I'm thinking this way. But there is a gap in the way that we're thinking about quarterbacks right now in both dynasty, but also in, rookie classes leading into dynasty, from years out. So I think it's an inefficiency. We can talk about it here, but it's changing in the NFL. Teams are approaching the position a little bit more differently than they have in the past. But now we have this thing in college where I actually think it becomes more efficient for it leading into the NFL. And that's what this show is going to be about, is how the two meet together. And why are we talking about the transfer portal, Ray? Because it's creating, I think, a more efficient market at a younger age in these prospects to where you maybe get would you call it an easier way to evaluate their paths, or just you spot the opportunity earlier? There's a lot of ways you could phrase it, but I think it's really good for the sport because quarterbacks, there's only one starting job. And it always used to be, there were QBs that were buried. You didn't know how good they were until, Bo Nix, year 4, he gets a chance to start. Michael Penix finds his 3rd school, gets a chance to start. You won't see that probably again as much. You may see some guys on the back end of their career that look like that. But the idea of this portal is allowing these guys to maybe get to their landing spot that can help them get more evaluated better for the next level sooner. Everything kind of balances out earlier versus you have a team like Georgia that had 3 5-star QBs on their roster. And you're going, which one are they going to play? And what do you do with the other two, right? Just because they don't win the job as a true freshman, does that mean they suck?
Well,
as a redshirt freshman, do they suck? It's like, so I think it makes more efficient for us to evaluate them. And then talking about the NFL impact, I think that's something we can dive into as well.
Well, let's talk some football right now. And I continue to say this. I've been saying it for years. More players in football, whether that's college football, the NFL, are ruined by coaching and or scheme fit than they are developed. I can assure you that players who make it to the NFL, yes, some get up there and they can't rise to the occasion. I'll just say this. I highly doubt it's because of their athletic ability. If they weren't athletic enough to run past defenders or make a tackle, they wouldn't be in the damn NFL. They wouldn't have received a Division I scholarship to Alabama. Once they get to the league, there's so many other things that factor in to a player's success. Their personal want to, their work habit, how they treat the game. You listen to stories from Maurice Claret talking about drinking vodka before practice, Michael Vick saying he never picked up a playbook. You hear these stories all the time. We sit back and we think that guy's got a shot. He's putting forth his best effort to get out there, and he's just busting. There are so many. I have friends that I know, new players that we loved in fantasy football. Josh Gordon is one of them. Said he didn't do a damn thing. College, didn't practice, rolled out of bed, can run a 4.3, right? Just God-given athletic ability. But sometimes, man, just like in life, think about it, Scott. You can be an attorney for Baker Botts, whatever firm it is, and it may not work at that firm for you. The culture fit may not be right. The work-life balance may not be right. Doesn't mean you're a bad attorney. But this job, this fit is not for me. And you see that in the NFL. Oh, my God. He went to a new team, and look how good he's doing. Oh, this player went to a new school, and look how – the transfer portal is one of the best things that's about to happen for Dynasty Fantasy Football. For those of you who understand that sometimes a player is just in a bad fit, it doesn't work, they're homesick. These are kids. When Bo Nix started at Alabama, he was a kid. He's a teenager, right? Regardless of what happened or not, he started there. Transfers, and for 2 years, smashes at Oregon. Jaden Daniels, talented young freshman at Arizona State, didn't work out there, transfers to the SEC, dominates down there. 3 of the top 4 quarterbacks in 2024 are transfers, Scott. Caleb Williams, Bo Nix, and Jaden Daniels all transferred from the original schools in which they started. And the way that we used to view that in Dynasty, we've been around long enough, Scott. Such and such is transferring. Boss sucks. Can't get on the field. He's running from competition. I'm looking at this now like, man, because of the transfer portal, there is a Michael Penix. Because of the transfer portal, Joe Burrow is here. Jalen Hurts. Had he stayed at Alabama, there would be no Hurts. Had he stayed at Alabama, he probably would have been a 6th-round pick, right? So these things are common. And I do believe that as we approach the game of Dynasty, what I'm already seeing now, Scott, are people saying, I didn't like Bo Nix back in 2019. No thanks. I'm out. Had to transfer, couldn't hack it at an SEC school, don't want any part of him. Jaden Daniels, I still don't know. I believe that this is a great thing for us in fantasy football if you can remove whatever preconceived notions or biases you had about those players when they started their career like 4 or 5 years ago. And honestly, Scott, I don't give a shit how long you're in college for. It takes you 5 years to get on the field to figure it out. If the NFL still values you, I'm in. I'm in and chasing, as Shane says, the volume. Follow the damn volume.
Yeah, and then you hear about, I was just listening to a podcast last week, and they talked for a half hour about 2 things, but one really stuck out to me. It was very, very little, and people, I think, maybe you can speak to this a little bit more because you played the game at a pretty high level, of the development that players get when they get to the NFL is zero. In terms of there's so little time to do anything other than we got to scout for the Cleveland Browns this week, or we have to make sure the new offense, because there's a new coordinator, a new QB coach, there's 3 new receivers in the room. You need to just fix that. There really is no time. And this is something that's new to me because I'm always operating under the assumption that, hey, these guys are in training camp. What are they doing, right? They're training. They're learning how to catch better. They're learning better footwork. They're learning all these things where we think, hey, as long as they keep getting better and better and better, what's the fallacy with Dynasty? A rookie does something as a rookie. And by year 2, He's just going to get better because he has to, right? And I think that's partially true if the guy in the offseason goes, hey, man, I was a great rookie tight end. I want to become even better. But this discussion that I was listening to was talking about none of that takes place at the NFL facility. When you're out there, they expect you to just learn whatever they're trying to teach. The offense, the scheme, it isn't, hey, you're the 6th round receiver that's getting no reps, but we're going to be teaching you on the side how to be closer to one of the guys that's starting. You're basically expected to just figure all that out on your own. Personal coaches, mentors, hopefully there's some veterans that show you that stuff, but the actual position coaches aren't really out there saying, Ray, you were a 7th round receiver. We view you as a special teamer this year, but by year 2, we want you to be the starting slot receiver.
Yeah.
And if you earn it, sure, but they're not sitting there going, I'm going to train you day after day. This isn't like a mentor helping a gifted student after school saying, I'm going to make you the next valedictorian. They're all gifted. So it really stuck out to me that there's not a lot of development at all once you're in the NFL. The biggest victims of this are quarterbacks. How many times have you heard that backup QB didn't get any first team reps? Never had a rep with the starter unless there was an injury
and
or unless there was somebody holding out.
Why would a billion-dollar company give the backup time? Other than enough that you can back up if my Joe Burrow goes down. There's no...
And they may figure, it's the old Peyton Manning quote about if we lose Peyton Manning, we're screwed anyway.
Right.
So it's kind of like, why waste time on the backup? I mean, sure, they're going to say publicly, man, if Jake Browning's got to come in, he can run the offense, right? But the reality is, in that coach's mind, they're cooked, right? They're cooked. They're not going to win with the backup QB. Now, there's very few exceptions to that, and then there's probably quarterbacks that are an exception. There are quarterbacks that are probably top 40 QBs. They're just not quite starters. But if they get in there, they got a better shot of winning than Tommy DeVito. Not all backups are created the same. But to your point, really, why would you? I mean, it's the same in Dynasty, right? Why would you have inefficiency on your team? The reality is we need our starting quarterback to be as good as possible, especially if it's a guy like a Brock Purdy, right? Like that guy needs to get up to speed quickly. We don't have time to go, well, we need to give Trey Lance reps in this training camp. It's kind of like it's Brock Purdy or bust. Now, they won't say that publicly. They're going to say we want everybody to develop, but quarterbacks are the biggest victims. I mean, you see quarterbacks come in, never took any first-team reps, never even really got any opportunity. A couple preseason games, and that's it. And there really isn't a place in the NFL to develop a backup QB. I mean, how many backup QBs could have been Gardner Minshew? But they didn't land in a situation where, like Gardner Minshew, they were forced to be thrown in to be a starter for a year, which what did Gardner Minshew get that year? A bunch of first-team reps, right? A bunch of game action. And that meant what? He's probably a backup for the next 10 years. Absolutely. How many guys were just as good as him that never got a shot, that are out of the league? And it's that minute difference. And you're sitting here going, man, what does this mean for the future of Dynasty with the transfer portal and all that stuff? I think that's going to start to change, especially this year. We've seen all the injuries at QBs. We've seen teams that literally have gone to backup QBs and they're still expecting to win. So I think for Dynasty, we have to take that into account. But it's a fascinating topic. I'm curious on your thoughts on the development of players. Yeah, even at your level that you played, like you were just at some point you came in bottom of the totem pole. Was there any let's teach Ray to catch up to the starters, or was it like Ray just needs to figure it out?
We have somebody in here, and I want to pull him up. Tanner says, former professional baseball coach here, can confirm this is true across sports. Sadly, you're a professional, man. This is why they have personal trainers. This is why they get together in the off season, because by the time you get to the actual sport and field of competition, they don't got time to teach none of that. Dude, you should have been working on this. We're installing. We've got to get plays down. We've got to do this. I did a Spaces about 2.5 months ago with Des Bryant, and we're on there, and Des is feeling good, and we're just talking the talk. And it came up. It was right after the Trey Lance trade, right before the season. And Des candidly shared a story about Tony Romo, when Tony Romo was replaced by Dak Prescott. And us in Dynasty, we sit back, oh, man, no better place for Dak to be than learning from Romo. Romo's going to teach Dak and show him the ropes. You heard this about Aaron Rodgers and people really kind of knocked him. Like Aaron was like, it's not my job to get Jordan Love ready. And that's exactly what Dez said. Dez laughed and said, why would you think that Tony Romo was out there trying to help Dak Prescott when that was his job, right? There was no let me mentor. That doesn't mean you're a bad teammate, right? When you're on the sideline, you're helping him out. You know what the role is. But he wasn't out there coaching Dak Prescott. Dad said, man, every time Tony wouldn't even come to practice. Tony wouldn't even come to practice. There was no help. There was no development. It is on you, the player, to get your shit together so when you get the opportunity, you can perform. And you don't have a lot of options. So I want to transition this, Scott, to talk about some of those players. That's why people are here. Some of those players, the Jaden Daniels of the world. We just saw a big transfer in college football. Rocket Sanders. Everybody blew first-round Debbie Capital on him this year. Now he's got to move to Arkansas. And what most people say when you see that is, oh, what a bum. Couldn't hack it at Arkansas. He's cooked, toast, transferring away. Well, you know what? If the portal didn't exist the way it was, there would be no Kenneth Walker. Right? Kenneth Walker wouldn't have been able to go to Michigan State, have the All-American season that he did to get himself into the second round of the NFL draft and ultimately a starting opportunity in Seattle. So I believe that what we're witnessing right now in college football is going to yield even more positive return for the NFL because you're getting players from underneath situations in which they could not have their talent shine. And it doesn't mean that they're bad. It just means, damn it, Isaiah Bond, Devontae Smith was better than you, and you weren't playing over Devontae Smith or whomever it is. Doesn't mean you stink. These guys are just very, very good, and they've been here, and they're dominant. So what we're witnessing right now, I want people to make sure you eliminate whatever old, outdated thoughts we had about players moving schools, not being able to do it. Now, if you're one of those JT Daniels where you're on your 8th school in 11 years, or Casey Thompson who took a snap in 2018 and he's still at that point, all right, you probably have no NFL future. But when you're looking at the Bo Nixes and the Michael Penixes and the Jaden Daniels, Scott, do you have any fear, reservation, or hesitation about selecting those guys? We can preference and rank, but if the NFL tells us they're first-round picks, are you going to have any fear drafting and investing in those assets in Dynasty?
No, especially with the trend of the NFL being willing to draft those guys in the spots that they're going to, meaning like they're willing to take fifth-year senior quarterbacks in the first round, in the second round, at a round where they've already viewed that player as maybe this isn't a franchise guy, but it is a guy that we're going to give a decent look. We're going to give him some of those reps to where we're going to give him a shot, where we're going to be able to see if they are the future at quarterback. It's not a 4th round pick where the expectation is, let's hope he's a backup. But it is really never, hey, let's throw him in there for 8 weeks and see if he can become the future starter. Because all the benefits you get when you hit on one of those day 3 quarterbacks or even a late day 2 QB, the financial impacts, what you can do to build and retain the team around you when you hit on one of those QBs. So I think seeing the NFL being willing to evaluate those guys, and the COVID year helped because it created like this log jam of players that's almost, it's still happening, but we probably have one more year to where that's still going to be an impact. But I think the other impact is that with the transfer portal, so you have this phenomenon, and you can mention a couple names, some highly touted freshmen this year, right, that came into Devy circles, Nico at Tennessee, Jackson Arnold at Oklahoma. These guys are probably looking at, from a Devy perspective, from a dynasty analysis standpoint, the NFL starting to prefer these guys. Rarely, I said it the other day, if you go back and look at quarterbacks that have been drafted outside of the top like 5 to 10 picks, like Anthony Richardson, exception. Elite talent. He's got traits that nobody's going to have. So the NFL didn't really say, well, he only started, 15 college games. That's not enough. We're not going to draft him. But you do see guys coming back to school, and I've even pushed back on you, and I go, Quinn Ewers may come back. Quinn Ewers may declare. Carson Beck may declare. But really, I bet you the NFL tells a lot of these guys, go back and get more games. You need more experience. You're not ready. Yet in Devy, we go, man, Quinn Ewers is part of that 2024 class. We don't even consider that he might not be one of those elite prospects, but the clock starts a little earlier when you start as a sophomore. But if you don't start as a sophomore, the NFL is still willing to take you seriously if you're a fourth-year starter, right? Or you're a fourth-year player. Maybe you're even a fifth-year player. So I think you have this conundrum where it's like you have these veterans and they're not elite players. And they're willing to go back, especially with the NIL money. They're willing to go back and go, you know what? I'll start for a fifth year. I'm going to enter the NFL at 23 or 24. But really, that doesn't change my long-term analysis. I'm either a top 5 pick, like a stud that I'm trying to get to the NFL right away. That's Drake May. That's Caleb Williams, right? They're coming out as juniors, no questions. But how many are those in a class? 1, 2? And a lot of times we project that there's going to be 5 or 6 a year out, right? Like next year, 2026, we're looking at this 2023 freshman class going, man, all of them are going to go declare early. The reality is maybe only 1 or 2 are going to get there. So it creates this where if you are an aspiring NFL QB, you want to get that clock started as soon as possible. But if you don't, it's not that they're going to give up on you, but I can see why. If you're a highly touted freshman and you're not playing in year 2 or you're not in line to play, I'm going somewhere else. I'm going to another spot because if I do have to have 3 years of starts under my belt, I don't want to wait until I'm a junior for that to start. So I think it's just interesting with the clock and the NFL being willing to kind of forgive these kids for not being ready after 3 years, not even being ready after 4 years, and being willing to say, hey, you know, you can still be QB2 in the class if you're a 24-year-old fifth-year senior. And I think that's encouraging. It creates even more flexibility for these guys down the road with the portal. You're muted.
Let's talk about this player, Michael Penix. Let's just talk about him, okay? Because he's probably going to be, in my opinion, probably the most polarizing quarterback prospect in the class. I believe so. I know you're looking like, I don't know. Let me tell you why. The reason why I think it's going to be Penix is because, first of all, he's playing on the biggest stage. He's playing in the college football playoffs, and he's got a phenomenal matchup against a great defense in Texas. And I do believe that they're going to be able to score on Texas, and we'll see if Washington can slow them down. But let's just say they win that game, and they face off against Michigan or Alabama. They will score on both of those teams. And Michael Penix, you watch him play. When he's standing in the pocket, man, and he has time, there may not be a more accurate thrower of the football in college football than Michael Penix. However, it's all coming from the pocket. He ain't moving on the run. He's not doing any of those things. Back-to-back seasons over 42, probably going to be over 4,500 yards. Back-to-back seasons, 66% completion percentage, 30-plus touchdown seasons back-to-back. He also came into college in 2018. This is his 6th season in college, multiple injuries. But this is a player, people love him, Scott. People love the idea of Tua 2.0. And hell, he's injured up just like Tua was coming out of Alabama, so it even fits even more so. But people love the idea of this guy, top 15 to Atlanta. And for a while, Scott, we listened to a lot of draft pods. They were saying he's like a 3rd, 4th round pick. I do believe that has shifted, and I do believe when it's all said and done, Penix is going to be a 1st round pick. I think he will. I think he's going to at least push towards that range, especially after the Senior Bowl. I think so. In the same vein that you talked about Quinn Ewers declaring after this playoff run, I think it's just as likely as Michael Penix goes in the 1st round of the NFL draft, and not because his talent is so great that you can't pass up, but because look at who we have playing freaking quarterback right now in the NFL, man. Joe Flacco's looked better than anything we've seen from Mac Jones, Kenny Pickett. I mean, he's looked better, and he's 35,000 years old and came off the couch. So, Michael Penix, just talk about what you've heard, and I know the enthusiasm and the sentiment amongst the fantasy community is star. What are your thoughts on this kid, man? He transferred. Here he is, biggest stage, dominant stats, wonky scheme, injury history, and pretty old. What are your thoughts on Penix?
I mean, I think you make good points. I've been essentially just on board with listening to what anybody that talks about draft prospects all year has been saying about them. You know, early on, Dane Brugler, not a top 100 pick. Now, he's even shifted off of that because I think he's had too good of a year, and he's probably too much in the spotlight now to say that you can't say, okay, for sure he's not going day 2. Like, you're right. He has the opportunity to make a name for himself to where it's like, all right, because you know there's probably people watching this playoff, NFL people. And once you get to that second, third round, you're going, all right, if he's not off the board, I'm taking him. You know what I mean? You can just see that happening to where the idea, oh, he's not a top 100 talent. And on Dane's board, he may not, because he's probably factoring in stuff like 24, can't move, 2 knee surgeries, arm injury, like all these things where like he wouldn't draft him there. But we're trying to predict what an NFL team's going to do. So I do think, and it speaks to more than just Michael Penix in this class. I think there's a lot of QBs that fit that. Well, that guy could go in round 2. That guy could go in round 3. And I think we have to take that seriously, because if all we're going to do is analyze, and this is why I encourage everybody to go pull up one of your leagues and look at the WAR this year. If all you're going to analyze a QB that gets drafted in the first round, in even the second round, or even the third round.
I know where you're going. Yep.
If all you're going to say is that they don't have Jalen Hurts' upside, then I don't want them. You're missing out. Now, I'm not saying you're missing out for it on your dynasty team necessarily, but you're missing out on a huge grouping of QBs that are currently in the league. You're missing out on a key piece of the market that you still want to be playing if you're playing dynasty, meaning I want to have a couple of these picks and a couple of these QBs to be able to move. I don't know what Will Levis's upside is, but there was a window where, you know what, you probably wanted a couple Will Levis's.
Yeah.
Like him or not, that you want to have some of these guys. So I think we have to start kind of shifting. And I used to be as arrogant as everybody at QB, right? Ain't a first rounder, I don't give a shit. Literally. If you're pick 62 in the NFL draft, I'm going, you're a late second. And what do you hear from people? That draft capital doesn't guarantee the guy anything. But do you care if it guarantees him anything 5 years down the road?
No.
Or are you looking for this? All right, in the next 12, and we could have predicted this, and it's probably true with a guy like Hendon Hooker as well. Within 12 to 24 months of when they were drafted into the NFL, there's going to be some sort of market movement on that player. Some up and then down, and then he's tradable here. No one wants him here. And if you're going to tell me that's the case, in a 1 to 2 year window, there's going to be a market piece or movement at that player point, you got to take it seriously when you're analyzing for dynasty. It can't just be, well, they don't have Anthony Richardson's upside. He can't run. Don't want him. Don't take it seriously. I'll just draft, I don't know, who's a receiver that's going to go like late day 2 next year. Lad McConkey, A.D. Mitchell, someone like that. I'll just take that guy in round 2 because he's an early third round pick. Ignoring the QB, because, Ray, he's not a guaranteed starter.
Right.
Yet, meanwhile, we're out here seeing half the QBs playing right now. Half the QB2s this week are going to be guys that were on waivers or backups.
Literally.
Yep.
Literally. Right. And it's a great shift into something that I've been saying, Scott. And I want to get your take on this. We haven't really talked about this in depth, and this is something I want to engage with the people about. Comment, talk to me. I talked about this on Monday on Wake Up, and I've been hinting at it for the past couple of weeks about just valuation and rankings in Dynasty. And I've been pretty outspoken that I think traditional Dynasty ranks are just, I think they're useless. I'm just going to flat out say it. My opinion of who I think is going to be better, like think about this for a minute, man. Just reel it back and think about this. Anybody watching this, either live or most of y'all will watch after the fact, y'all don't need me to freaking tell you that Saquon Barkley's good. You don't need me to tell you Jahmyr Gibbs is good or Jamar Chase. You already have an idea of where you value those guys, high, right? Or Jalen Reagor, low, I don't want him. You don't need me to put it in my own order, right? Where I think rankings are valuable is ranking based on perceived value. What can I do with said asset? But long gone for me are the days of 1 through 150 and, Tyler Boyd's better than Jahan Dotson. Who cares? Who cares? Pick who you want. Pick who you want. Take the one you want. Take the one with Burrow. Take the one in Washington. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter from the standpoint of you need to pay somebody to tell you those things. What I want out of a ranking system is something that you've talked about quite a bit, that likability score. I want to make sure that I have enough of them things on my roster. I want to make sure I've got enough hopium that I can sell to somebody else. Doesn't matter if I can think Isaiah Spiller's the dopest running back in the world. But if I've got him in 30 leagues, I'm the only damn fool with him and nobody else wants him. Right? I want to know who people think is valuable. Those are the assets that I want. And I challenge you, Scott. I think there are far fewer of those players in Dynasty than we probably think. I think it's the obvious names. The top 25 players have tremendous value. And then, like you talked about on the Dynasty Weekly Portfolio Show, there's a massive cluster of especially wide receivers and I would say running backs because people still want to know Rashad White or Najee Harris. They still want to know those things. But there's probably a much bigger gap in the middle from production and value that's where you really need to decipher and figure out what you want to do with. But just your thought about all of this in general, because I just don't think it does people good, man. I don't think that is what you need. Me telling you this player over that player, because you know what? All our leagues are different, Scott. Every league is its own individual market. Every single league. There's no, unless you're in Scott Fishbowl or in Underdog Fantasy, but even then, you're subject to the people that you're drafting with. You're subject to the people in which you're drafting with. So you can be in one super flex league in Underdog Fantasy where quarterbacks go late and another one they all go off the board in the first round. So every league is different, and the value placed on those assets changes from market to market, man.
Yeah, and here's an exercise for everybody in the chat to kind of just reflect what Ray is saying. So fast forward 6 weeks from now. Nothing that's happening this year matters anymore. And make a list of the players where you say, doesn't matter the status of my team. I want that guy. Doesn't matter if I'm 2 years away from thinking I can win or I've won 3 straight titles. Think about it. Not just I want the player because they're dope, because they're really good, they score a lot of points, but just I want that asset on my roster. Meaning I know over the next 8 months when there's no points, there's no games, I probably have some sort of flexibility or ability to go buy something better or turn that into multiple pieces. Mm-hmm. List the players out where you say, I want that because there's going to be demand. That's really what you're saying with likability score.
Right.
It's the same thing. It's basically, can I go out there and what has the most demand in my league? And you said there's some leagues where there's not going to be demand for a certain player, and there's others where there might be somebody that shouldn't have any demand, but there's somebody that wants them. That's fine. But I think going through that exercise really will highlight for people just how few players have market demand at all times, injured or not, smashing or not, good situation, bad situation. There's that demand, and it doesn't last forever. There's players that a year ago you would have said, oh, their market demand's always there, whether they're injured or not. A year later, the injuries consist, they continue, the situation doesn't get better. Slowly, you lose that demand, right? There's players that people would have bought into injured last year. Tank Dell. People still want Tank Dell now that he's injured. Ray, if he goes out there week 1 next year, gets another season-ending injury, I guarantee you that demand starts to wane, right?
Yes.
The 6 people that want him now, that might only be 2 people that still believe in him after 2 lost seasons. And it just happens that way. And I think, example for everybody right now, before this past week, higher Trinity score, Christian Kirk or Elijah Moore? It was Christian Kirk.
Christian Kirk.
Before this past week, Christian Kirk, right? You would have probably preferred Christian. If I made Ray put up his rankings, he would have gone Christian Kirk. He's 27. He's tied to a top 10 QB. He's produced back-to-back top 24 seasons.
Yes.
Give me him over Elijah Moore. Now,
easily.
He's out for the year. Amari Cooper's out for maybe a week. Joe Flacco apparently loves Elijah Moore because they were good on the Jets together. That's the only time Elijah was good last year was with Joe Flacco. And now I'm sitting here going, Ray, if you're contending, would you trade your Elijah Moore right now for Christian Kirk straight up?
No.
And you're probably going, that's a tougher decision than it was last week.
Absolutely.
So what does that tell everybody about the dynasty insulation or demand for those 2 players? It flipped on a dime. The player evaluation of how old they were, what they've produced, none of that matters. None of that trumps the right now, who's available for the next 2 or 3 weeks. And if either of those things matter to the person making the trade, That is what is going to drive whether they're willing to make that deal or not Ray's rankings, because Ray ain't even going to update his rankings fast enough for you to go, Ray, are you sure you still have Christian Kirk above Elijah Moore? He's out for the year and I need Elijah Moore. So should I not make this trade? And your response is going to be like, probably I didn't update my rankings. Right. But B, you're also going to say, does that range of player really matter enough where you would take anything other than the guy producing over the next week or two? Do you even care?
Here's what we need. And I'm going to put a challenge out there for somebody, because there's going to be somebody that watches this that feels what we're saying, Scott, and they're like, I can do this.
I know what it is.
I think there needs to be a dynamic weekly ranking system. And in my mind, it's much like the stock market because it's moving up and down, right? Kyren Williams right now, RB9 on KTC right now because he just smashed and he's healthy. 3 weeks ago, not 3 months, not 3 years, 3 weeks ago, Scott, he's back down RB17. No one, Kyren, he's not playing, out of sight, out of mind. Moment he comes back, Scott, if I would have had $1 million on the table, started the 2022 draft process, Kyren Williams goes undrafted, 5th round, whatever he was, and I told you, Scott, it's a top 10 dynasty running back in less than 24 months. What would you have said? You're out of your mind, Ray. Based on everything that happened with Kyren Williams, from the draft, the testing, not getting an opportunity, being hurt, he's dead, he's done. And I told you he's going to be a top 10 dynasty running back in less than a year. What would you have said?
Especially if you told me his entire first year was gone. Zero. That's the big thing. If you're going to say it about a player, but you think there could be some opportunity, I'm not going to completely dismiss it. But when then you tell me he's got everything going against him and year one is a 0, that's when you're getting into the territory of there almost isn't a comp to something like that, right? It's 1 in 1,000.
But here's where Ray, John Smith, Jared Wackerly, I'm throwing Jay Wack. I love Jay Wack. That's Dynasty Nerds. I love them. I'm just using his name. But this is where we can't adjust fast enough, because what do? Man, I really can't move him up the Dynasty ranks yet. I don't know, Scott. 5th rounder, soon as he gets in. We don't adjust, but it doesn't matter what I believe he's going to be 5 years from now. What is your individual market telling you about that asset? And right now, everybody's individual market is saying, this is a player that you want. Whether you're a contender or rebuilder, this is a player that you want. Damn with what happened before that. And I think we're seeing that, Scott. We're seeing more teams just give players opportunities. And I think where we used to, that can't last, not sustainable, Travis Fulgham, maybe there are a few of those, but when you have somebody that's getting the opportunity, receiving it, is there anybody out there, and a lot of people like to troll, but do you truly believe Puka Nacua is not going to be the starting receiver for the Rams next year? And not whomever's at quarterback, they're not going to scheme up touches to get Puka Nacua the ball. So here's the thing, Scott, I don't give a damn if you want to move him from wide receiver 12 to wide receiver 20. It really doesn't matter, because all it takes is one Puka Nacua 70-yard touchdown run for everybody to be like, told you. He's good. Y'all were fools for the last couple. It does not matter what the numerical number is from some static long-term outlook. What are you doing for me this week? What can you do for me next week? I'll deal with 24, 25, and heaven forbid how we used to play Dynasty. 3 years from now, I'll have a juggernaut on my team. Can't wait. What does it matter? How is that helpful to people? And what can we do in order to get people to at least think about being a little more player agnostic? And there are definitely some players who do matter. Like, let's get that. There are plenty of them that actually matter, that you want them in all formats. You look at the WAR, it's going to say Amon-Ra's great across all boards. So we're not sitting here trying to tell y'all, the hell with every player, sell them all, move them all. But that pocket of ones that actually do matter is much smaller, Scott. So what you did in your weekly Dynasty Portfolio series, talking about that middle tier of receivers, use the freaking tools, people. Go to the website, pull up the WAR tool, and put in your league, and just take a look. Just look. Run the Trinity on these receivers and look at the big cluster in the middle of players that are just kind of all jumbled together. And you've got to be able to figure out which one of these assets are desirable in my market, not in Ray's league, not in Scott's 1,000 leagues, but in my league, right? In my league. In leagues with Scott and I, no one gives a shit about Drake London. Nobody. But in your league, there may be somebody out there. I love his talent. Wait until they get Michael Penix and it's going down in Atlanta. You know what I'm saying?
It's thinking about Dynasty, and it's why we talk about war the way we do. We're both married. There are times in our personal lives where we go, you know what, that subject isn't worth fighting over or debating. You just kind of accept it. It doesn't really matter. That's not the topic you want to push your significant other or your family members, right? It's the same in Dynasty. There are ranges of players. It's why we say pull up the war in your league, look at the historic war, compare it to what's going on right now this year. But understand, it's almost like saying, understand where the decisions or where the spots are in your league based on the format and the scoring and the settings, where you even want to really bother with any sort of big picture, like player analysis, right? Because a lot of these debates, I mean, when we're on a Trades in 5 stream, the reason I did that show the way that I did, 90% of the questions we get, Ray, are about receivers in that range. And part of the purpose is to kind of say the receivers in that range, they're all good. They're all capable of giving you a wide receiver top 5 week. They're all capable of going, 2 for 10 because they're not studs that are going to give you a floor every week either. The point is basically they are all good to have. They're even better to have because other people like trading in that market. But it's also not the range of player where really your analysis, you don't need to spend hours and hours and hours going through this upcoming rookie class and trying to debate over who's the wide receiver 3 through 8 when they're all drafted in the top 40 picks. Pick the guys you like, tier them the way that you want. But aside from that analysis, you can pretty much say all those receivers are going to jump right into this range we're talking about. Some are good, some are bad, some are better than others. But generally, once they get to the NFL and they've shown that they can play, they're all the same. So when you have that, it's going, all right, the Puka Nacua versus DJ Moore debate, like that kind of thing. It doesn't matter. The best thing you can do is go, I don't really care. Give me enough of them to get by in my league. Give me enough of them to get me production. But anytime someone goes, okay, I know for sure that Puka Nacua is going to go up another tier. Right. He's the next Amon-Ra. All right, then you know what? Ray loves him. I like him. He's a sell at that point. And he's a sell during the window when other people are thinking that. But realize 2 bad games, you ain't going to hear that he's the next Amon-Ra. You may hear the opposite, right? He's going to fade out of the top 24. So just understand that market volatility. It's not just receivers. QB2s are the same way. Damn near every running back is the same way.
Yes.
What are you doing for me now?
Right now.
And then tight ends, outside of
is that true? Is that true for running back? I'm going on a tangent now, and let's speed it up a little bit. Breece Hall. This is 2 wasted seasons of Breece Hall. I'm just going to say it like that. It's 2, and it's not Breece's fault. It ain't Breece's fault. He's very good. And when he's on the field and the offense is halfway competent around him, he's dynamic. He's awesome. It's 2 wasted years of Breece Hall. Going into year 3, and he's still, the ranking of Breece Hall, right? This is why I can't get Breece Hall, because he's still valued, right, as RB4 in Dynasty. But really, what is that? Right now, Scott, who would you rather have?
When you want to buy him, he's valued there, right?
Well, who would you rather?
Had any, and you go and try to sell him.
Well, let me ask you for Dynasty, right? You're a contending team right now. You want Kyren Williams or Breece Hall?
Kyren Williams.
Just say it.
Not even close.
I want Kyren. I don't give a shit about Breece Hall 5 years. I want Kyren right now. Right now. Now, there are some exceptions, and my question to you is it the right process to continue to make these exceptions? And I'm going to answer for you. If I asked you right now on a contending team, who would you rather have, Bijan Robinson or Kyren Williams? Your answer would be you would rather the production that Kyren Williams is going to give you. You would bet on the production. Now, There's other factors that go into that. There is some long-term security for Bijan Robinson. And you do know that, hell, the Rams could turn around and draft Braylon Allen in the draft. Who knows? They go draft Donovan Edwards, Blake Corum. But should we be making those exceptions for those and I'm speaking running back in particular, for running backs? Should we be making when in leagues in which we play, you're not getting 3 first-round picks for Bijan. You're not. You're not getting 3 first. You're not getting 2 first in a player. More times than not, it's a tear down, a maneuver around. Like, what is it about those players that makes us hesitant for making those moves? Because most people wouldn't dare do that. There's no way in hell I'm trading Bijan for Kyren in a first. No way. Can't do it. Will not do it. Bijan's a stud. Can't do it. Is that right, or is that right?
Let's use your Brees example, and I'm just going to ask everybody in the chat. Real quick scenario. You have a team that's top 4, but it's not the best team. You could use another hammer for the playoffs. You have Brees Hall. There's another team that's also in the top 4. Not the best team, but another playoff team. So you're going to be going up against this team to get to the championship, right? You're going to have to go through this roster.
Yep.
They have Kyren, you have Brees. Let's just say it's a start 10 lineup league. So, not super shallow, but not super deep, right? So you look at that and you say, all right, I really love to get Kyren. You're trying to buy Kyren. The guy wants, 2 firsts or whatever. And I don't blame him, right? I don't really want to sell him for a single first if I'm in that situation. Ray, I offer you Brees Hall for your Kyren Williams. The only thing you'll give me back is a 2025 third. Okay, that's it. So you immediately look at that pick and go, that pick don't matter. The only thing I can do with that pick is what can I trade it for? That's it. It's not a pick where you're saying it's going to matter in a start 10. I'll bump that up to 2/3. Anybody right now, if you're in that situation, would you give up Brees Hall for Kyren Williams and 2/3? Yes or no? Just type yes or no in the chat. I want to see how many people's initial reactions are. Would you trade Brees Hall for Kyren Williams and 2/3?
Type it in the chat.
I just want to see who says yes, who says no. Type in the chat, yes or no.
We're not even going to go until we get some people to go. And I want to, Marcus, we're going to address this.
All the no's, the hell no's are coming in. Yep. No. And you and I may not make that move, but we are more apt to make that move than I think the general consensus of dynasty managers. Because I think we've just embraced the fact that what is Brees Hall, Ray, in that deal? It's a 3-letter abbreviation. What is he in that trade?
A Jag.
No. It's an abbreviation that you always use to.
I know. ADV, man. ADV.
It's
ADV.
All ADV. Meaning what's holding you back from that deal, even if you acknowledge, hey, running backs really don't matter other than what they can do for me right now. What's holding you back in that deal is you're picturing this utopian trade that comes down the pipe later on where someone goes, man, I'm going to give you 2 firsts for Brees.
Yes.
I'm going to give you CeeDee Lamb for Brees. Yeah, like you're picturing the better deal down the road. You're picturing, what is the analysis we always hear? I can't do that because I'll be able to move him for more later.
Yes, that's what everybody says.
And that's not saying that's always right or always wrong, but that line of thinking, that even impedes me from making deals. There's times where I go, you know what, I can't do this because I know the asset's going to be worth more in 6 months. And yes, Brees Hall is going to be worth more in 6 months when it looks like the offensive situation is turning around. There's going to be maybe you can't trade him for more, but there will be more people willing to pay something close to the KTC price.
Yes.
So that's where your hesitation is. But how many people cost themselves a championship in that situation, Ray, by not making that move? And then here's what is the real killer. In 6 months, when Brees Hall's value or his demand goes up, what's that person going to do then? They're going to move the goalposts. They're going to go, I need more now. When the people in the league are going to say, hey, I'm willing to pay you his price that was back in December of 2023. I'm willing to pay that price. And you're going, nah, man, he's not RB5 anymore. He's RB2. So you need to tack 2 extra seconds onto that. And then the person's going to say, man, I can't pay that for Brees Hall. So then you're stuck with him still, right? You had that moment of that ADV actually being closer to real market value. and you shifted your price
Correct.
outside of the market, and you still held on to Breece Hall. And now you're going, man, I hope he smashes, because I could have won the title last year if I would have moved him. And now I can't sell him, quote unquote, low, because everyone's saying I shouldn't give him up for a single first. That dynamic happens all the time.
Trip Crown says this, man. This I get it, man. This sucks, but I'm gonna read this, right? It says, I think something we need to consider is that fantasy football is just very random. We can't control it. You use as much process as you want, but I just feel defeated with the randomness. And I'm going to use this from a betting perspective. I like to bet. I am a volume-based sports bettor. I will bet 50 bets a night if I can find good EV plays. Scott, if you only made one bet a day or one bet a week and you put your hard-earned $50 on the line, your $100 on the line, that bet bust, you feel like you're like, man, why did I do that? This really sucks. Me? Shit, I can lose it all in one night and don't care because I'll be right back tomorrow because I'm doing it in volume, right? So I'm not advocating for people to go out and join 20, 30, 40 leagues, but if you've got the capacity and if you're here watching this show live, you love fantasy football. You do. There's no other reason to be sitting here on Wednesday night other than you love fantasy football. Try to get in 5, 6, 7 leagues. That way, when the random variant strikes, Scott, myself, Jay Rich, and Marcus that's in the chat. Well, I'll use Jay Rich. Marcus is in the chat, and he's in Scott Fishbowl. We drafted our Scott Fishbowl teams very similar. Hammer in the running back position. But you know what? We got hit with some bad variants, and we had players that didn't perform, got hurt. Jay Rich's variance was luck. He hadn't had any injuries, right? Same strategy, same type of assets. We just picked the wrong players. The randomness happens, but when you have multiple pockets in which your money is spread out, it makes taking those random hits, it makes it a little more palatable. Like you can, it sucks. I really wanted to win this league, but you know what, Scott? I got a league where I had Jimmy Garoppolo, Daniel Jones, and Justin Fields. They're all hurt. What can I do? It just sucks, right? You move on to the next. So I get it, Trip Crown. It sucks. It is random. The process, Scott, and I want you to close this out with this. The process does not mean you're going to pick the right players or that the result is going to be the result in which you intended it to be. But if you follow the process more times than not, just like sports betting and having a value-based process, you will win long-term. You will be profitable and you will make moves and you're not too invested in the Brandon Ayuk's that you talked about. Close us out with that because I think that's a really good segue and we have 2 super chats. So kind of close out the show with that, Scott.
Yeah, I mean, to anybody that's in here that's only in a couple leagues, I can empathize with, because I play in a lot of dynasty leagues, but I don't bet like Ray. I'm the kind of person that I bet casually, and I can see where if you're only in 1 or 2 leagues, you know, you put up your $100 to be in 2 leagues, and you make the Breece Hall for Kyron trade, and it goes wrong in a week. Now you're sitting here going, I'm not going to win, and I'm probably not feeling as good about my future. So it can be defeating, right? It really can be defeating. So I think just understanding what Ray is saying and what I talked about is it's not necessarily that you can escape the variance. We choose to play a game of fantasy football that is already relying on what is happening in another sport. Then you add into the fact, how much information are we trying to operate on that is incorrect, not the full picture. There's a ton of stuff where we go, there's no way I can ever solve for all this. We accept that. This is a game of luck. It's a game of chance. We only know 10% of the information going in, yet we sit here and think we know everything. And we build these tools and go, yeah, this is going to give us all the answers. Really, all it does is helps us make better decisions. But I think the biggest takeaway here is you'll feel a little better about the decisions when they go wrong. When the result isn't right, Ray and I will just shake it off and go, you know what? We'll move on to the next league. I used to stress over it, man. I want to run the table in every league. I want to be perfect. I want to be the best player that outruns all the variants, better than everybody else. And it's really freeing when you just say, you know what, I'll make that Breece for Kyron in 2/3 deal. And I'll feel okay about it. If it goes wrong, it goes wrong. But I think how you feel after the results come in is what keeps you in the game. It's what keeps you to say, you know what, I want to play next year. I'm excited to do another startup. I'm excited to talk trade with somebody else. If you're in one league and it gets destroyed, you're defeated. You want to quit. You go, I'm going to go play something else. So I think that's why we advocate kind of spreading the wealth. It's better for your dynasty mental health. Maybe that's a new term, but it really is a thing with this day-to-day game. It can really get to you if you let it get to you on that level.
And I hear you, and we can't get into it on this one. If you're trying to win dynasty like this, there's no tool. There's no process. There's no tool. There's no Evan Silva, Ray Garvin, Scott Connor, Ryan McDowell that's going to help you pick the right players every year. If there were, everybody in the world would be sub to DD. Everybody. I'd take everyone's money because I just tell you, and let me just say, don't let anybody out there tell you that they know the right players to pick. There are tools out there that can help you identify efficient offenses, good systems, good schemes, good opportunity. But at the end of the day, we're not even playing a game. We're playing a proxy for a game. We're not even playing the game. We're playing a proxy for a game that's played in which we think we got a lot of information. We probably had this much. Marcus is in this chat, and I'm calling him out. He played at UT on a team that had fucking Vince Young and won a national championship. And I guarantee he can tell us there's a lot more that goes on in the locker room that impacts a player's performance, good or bad, that we don't even have a sniff of access to. So if you're trying to play Dynasty and your goal going into the season is I have to outpick my league mates, you will lose. You will lose. Let me say that again. If you think that you can get into leagues and outdraft and outpick players, I promise you will lose. You better have a process. You better figure out a strategy in which to construct a team based on your league formats and league settings, and then you try to figure out. But don't lead with, I got to pick the right players. You will lose. And people like Scott and me, we will beat your ass. If you think that you can pick players better than everybody else, you will lose. I promise you that. And that ain't to Trip. That's to anybody. And I thought I was that guy. I thought if I watch more film than you, Scott, I can tell you. Rondell Moore is going to smash. I saw what he did against Ohio State. Can't do it, man. You cannot try to do that. So let's wrap this up. Got a couple of super chats real quick, Scott. Ryan dropped this one before the damn stream even started. So he's been waiting like an hour and 5 minutes for this one. Appreciate you. 10 teams, start 10, super flex Pacheco in the 105 for 103. Worth it having Marvin Harrison Jr.'s or neighbors in mind. Set at QB, trying to gauge the drop off from neighbors to Romo Dunze. So 10 teams, start 10. He's got Pacheco on 105, and he's thinking, is Pacheco on 105 enough for 103? What do you think, Scott? 10 teams, start 10.
Yeah, Ryan, I'm fine with this. It's a shallow format. You're giving up a running back to move up 2 spots. The only thing I'll just, and Shane says this all the time, I'll give Shane a shout out. A ton of people are already doing this, Ray. They're going 105 as neighbors, 103 as MHJ. They're already take lock on what these picks are. Zoom out and go, okay, 105 versus 103 versus Isaiah Pacheco. When time comes, what pick are you going to rather have? And you got to know your league. If it's a dead-ass league where no one does anything and they'll never trade you a good running back, maybe you say, you know what? I can stick with the 105. But that's the type of analysis. Don't already be plugging players in going, Dunze versus neighbors. Ray may say he likes neighbors. 3 months, Ray may be going to Dunze is the wide receiver 1 in the class. You know what I mean? It's possible that you get there. So don't even be putting players in there. Just think about the flexibility of what you can do with those picks.
All right, here's one more, and it's your boy Burrow. And this is a great segue to the end since Burrow was on the thumbnail of this episode from Rory Sullivan. Thank you, Rory. 12-team Devy Superflex, start 11. All right. He's thinking about trading Burrow in a depleted 24 first, Devy first, depleted 24 first, and a Devy second. Okay. For Jared Goff, Devontae Smith, and Nico Collins. It might have to be a first, not a Devy second, but a Devy first in order to get Goff, Devontae Smith, Nico Collins. You kind of mentioned Hendon Hooker a little bit. Very quickly, do you not think Jared Goff is solidified as a long-term starter in Detroit?
No, I don't buy that. I just think that there's going to be a window for Hendon Hooker, whether it's a window that you're unsure about what's going to happen with Goff, but he's somebody that you want to keep on the radar.
So would you
but for this deal,
Burrow 2 firsts for Goff, Smitty, and Nico Collins, and one of the first is a Devy depleted 24 and a Devy first.
I mean, listen, Rory, this is one of those that's very similar to the Breece Hall deal, right? There may be a lot of ADV built into Burrow right now. So, I mean, I'd typically say give me the elite QB. I would undervalue those Devy depleted picks. People just throw those around like they're nothing. Yet you look up and you go, damn, those are just as good as Nico Collins and Devontae Smith. Like, it's possible. But I'm okay with this. If you really say I want both Nico and Devontae are in my lineup and I'll roll with Goff and I'm going for a ship, I don't have any problem.
I don't mind it. I don't mind
But
it.
if I'm out of it, I could look at the other side, Ray, and go, I'm okay doing this. You know what I mean? I could see it on both sides.
Are Drake London and Kyle Pitts still worth a future first-round pick? Honest opinion, love your content. Keep up the amazing work, fellas. Thank you, Dre. Peace. 316.
Well, Dre, to answer you on Drake London, go watch the Dynasty Portfolio Weekly. I literally talk about how to analyze Drake London in that big cluster of receivers. If I said he's not worth a first, people would go, yep, I agree. If I said he's worth a first, people would go, yep, I'd pay a first for him. So, pick your there. Pitts. Are we copping out, Ray, by saying that you got to know your tight end market, how much it matters? Is he worth a first? Yes, the market would say he's worth a first. Do I want to blow my first on Kyle Pitts? And then in a league where no one gives a shit about tight end, I now have Kyle Pitts, which means what? ADV, and I'm stuck with him.
ADV.
He better smash.
It's straight ADV. And let me say this. Sometimes I want some of them players. I want some ADV on my roster. And here's the beauty of holding ADV, and we're done after this, because I don't give a shit about it, right? I don't care, but I know somebody else does. So the moment that ADV gets ripe enough to pick that fruit from the tree, I will sell. I'm telling you right now, Scott, I said it on Trades in 5. In a dynasty starter, give me Trey McBride 100 out of 100 times over Kyle Pitts. And that does not mean I don't want any Kyle Pitts or I think he's a bum. But if I had to pick a player to jam in a tight end spot today, it's Trey McBride. Not even close. What's changing about Kyle Pitts' situation anytime soon? Drake London just went out there and went 1 for 5, or however many yards he had. Nothing. And nothing is. I feel bad for Atlanta fans because they're too good to get one of the good quarterbacks, and they're not bad. What's changing with Arthur Smith? And they've got a shot to win the NFC South and host a home playoff game. ADV, man. Scott, close us out, baby.
So, yeah, good show, everybody. If you're in the Discord, jump over. We're going to do an AMA here very shortly in the Discord. Chase from the Overreaction Pod will jump on with Ray. So this will continue over there here in about 5-10 minutes. Give Ray a little break to go, get a drink, get his bearings, and get ready to go. If you're not there, check out the Discord. You can sign up at destinationdevy.com. The Patreon, you can sign up through there as well in the Trades in 5 tier. And just subscribe to all our work. Subscribe to the pods. You all know Ray and I. But check out the new shows, but more importantly, check out the other content creators. There's a lot more to Destination Devy than just Ray and I. So appreciate everybody. Till next week, leave us feedback on what do you want us to talk about, because we're pretty much open in the off season.
Get your shitty rosters reviewed too. Get your shitty rosters reviewed. Yes. Trades in 5. Go to the website. Y'all know Clay's posting stuff all over. And I'm not just saying this to pitch it. Like, have Scott and them. If you're serious about this, and somebody in here said that he doesn't play Dynasty. He's been in here the whole time. Doesn't play Dynasty, but he enjoyed the intel. Trying to find it. Here, he's Sammy. Sammy says, I don't play Dynasty, but I love the intel. Just check it out. Just try it out. Get tax season. You're about to get money back. Try it out and just talk through it. And I guarantee you, even if you don't play Dynasty or you think you know, having Shane and Scott and potentially myself kind of talk through it with you will open your eyes up to different things. Like, I'm just telling you, give it a shot, give it a try. Come join the group, man. If y'all join the Discord, and I'd say this to everybody, and I'm saying this to thousands of people who watch this, if you join and hate it, you're like, dude, this ain't for me, not my flow, man, I ain't in no business of taking nobody money. I'll give you damn money back. If you try it out and you're like, now you only get like a few, like it's got to be pretty quick, but you can't be there for 6 months and say, I don't like it. But if you truly have a problem with what we're doing, hit me up and we can work through it. But it's a dope community, good people, and this is the time to get better. Don't wait until July to figure out what your game plan is for fantasy football next year. Start to think about these things now and train your mind to get ready to take advantage and attack your league. So thank y'all for tapping in tonight. Scott, thank you, my friend. It feels good to be back. And make sure y'all show up again next Wednesday, 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Scott and I chopping it up with y'all. We love each and every one of you. Hit the thumbs up button, like the content. Come on over to Discord. We're out. Peace.